Welcome to the Rational Egoist. I'm your host, Michael Leibowitz, and with us once again is the wonderful Professor Andrew Bernstein. He is a professor, he's also a radical for capitalism, and a rather prolific author, if I don't say so. Professor Bernstein, Andy, welcome back.
Thanks, Michael. Always fun to be on your show.
So, Andy and I got this thing going where we review movies, and we do so with the backdrop of the objectivist theory of aesthetics. And today we've got a great movie. This one I really enjoyed, Spartacus, starring the legendary Kirk Douglas. So, without further ado, tell us what it's about.
Slave rebellion in ancient Rome, based on a true story. I think it was around 100 BC. Howard Fast wrote the novel, Michael, that the movie was based on. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe he was a member of CPUSA, the Communist Party of America. I think he was. Certainly, Dalton Trumbo, who wrote the screenplay, was a communist and had been blacklisted for it. But be that so the communists see it as the oppressed rising up against the oppressor. That's their view of it. But slave uprising in ancient Rome, roughly 100 BC, based on a true historical story, and not just a slave uprising, an uprising of the most dangerous slaves of all, the gladiators, professional warriors. And the joke was that there's so many slaves. The Romans had so many slaves that it was a wonder the Italian peninsula didn't sink into the sea from the weight of all the slaves. Anyway, the gladiators rise up. They kill the head of the gladiator school, the owner, paid brilliantly by Peter Ustinov, who I think won an Oscar for Best Supporting Actor and certainly deserved it. He escapes. He's a coward. He runs off. But they kill the trainer. I remember I saw this movie when it came out when I was a kid, Michael. What year was it? It was like 1960?
Yeah,
something
well
like
before
that.
I was born, sure.
Yeah, and by the way, just as an aside, notice all the movies we've been discussing have been from a certain time frame. Judgment in Nuremberg was roughly 1960, and then The Train was like, 63 maybe, and then Jeremiah Johnson was 72, and now Spartacus roughly 1960s, all in like a 12-year time frame. I don't know what that means.
I love classic movies. Let me just tell you, when I was in prison, they have this on Saturday nights on PBS, they used to run classic movies, and I would just watch them all. One, because they're enjoyable, but also just to get the culture. To me, when you're watching these old movies, it's like reading old novels. You're literally seeing the stuff that shaped our culture, shaped the world that we live in. Because, there's a thing, there's art imitate reality, or there's reality imitate art. I tend to think it goes both ways. So these movies are very influential and also very well done.
Yes. Yeah, and we could go back even further to the golden age of Hollywood, 1930s, 1940s, where there were some great films, and I'm sure we will in our ongoing series. And part of the reason for that is, they didn't have the technology back then to give you much special effects, and so the story had to draw you in. And as Ayn Rand pointed out, also, the culture has kind of gradually deteriorated, and so the writing back then was probably a little better than it is today generally anyway. But yeah, a lot of great old movies. But the slaves rise up, the gladiators rise up, and they free all the slaves in that area of Italy. They were in the south of Italy, as I recall, and they free all of the slaves, and they have a slave army. And the Romans send legions against them, but the slave army headed by the gladiators defeats them. Spartacus, the leader played by Kirk Douglas, Spartacus makes it clear to the Roman hierarchy, look, we don't want to conquer Rome. We don't want to kill Romans, and we just want our freedom. We want out. We want out of Italy. What we want to do is hire the pirates to ship us out of Italy and then make our way to our homes. But the Roman leadership and Laurence Olivier plays Crassus. It's just the acting in this movie. Right? You have Laurence Olivier as Crassus, Charles Lawton as Gracchus, and Charles Lawton to me is like the best actor, best all-around actor I think I've ever seen. Peter Ustinov, the beautiful Gene Simmons as Spartacus's wife, Lavinia. I don't remember her.
Yeah, this is not Gene Simmons from Kiss, because you and I already went through
Yeah,
this.
the actress Jean Simmons, who was a very beautiful woman and a talented actress. Tony Curtis, of course, as Antoninus, the musician and player of songs. You have just a superlative cast in this movie, and but the Romans can't let them go. They have a gazillion slaves. What kind of a precedent is that going to set, for all the other slaves, if they could rise up, and the Romans let him go? Besides which, the Romans are supposed to be such hard rocks. They conquered the world. They're going to be beaten by a bunch of slaves, so they can't let him go. And Crassus, who's fabulously wealthy, buys off the pirates who were supposed to ship, the slaves out of Italy. And unbeknownst to Spartacus, the Romans have recalled their armies. Pompey's army from Spain, another Roman. They got like 3 or 4 legions bearing down on them, and they're finally defeated. And Spartacus lives, and the Romans want to make an example out of him. They don't know what he looks like. They don't know what, So the survivors, who just give Spartacus over to us. And there's some touching scenes there at the end, right? It's big spoiler alert, by the way. Really.
This is badass.
Yeah, this is really badass.
This is badass. Talk about stand up and be counted, right?
Oh my God. Yeah, because the Romans say, look, I don't know how many survivors there are, 100,000. I don't know. We will let you go. We'll enslave you, but we won't crucify you. Turn Spartacus over to us. Crucify him. And crucifixion is a horrible form of death. Like, they nail you to a cross, and you're up there for hours, and you finally suffocate. You can't push off the cross to breathe anymore. It's just a slow, agonizing death. And Spartacus gets us, I am Spartacus. And then some other guy, I am Spartacus. I'm Spartacus. And the Romans have made it very clear, if you don't turn Spartacus over to us, we're going to crucify all of you. And these guys, they all chose crucifixion rather than to turn Spartacus, over to the Romans. It's just unbelievably courageous, knowing, the agonizing death that's in store for them. And the Romans figure out who Spartacus is. I can't remember how. You remember how they figured out? But I remember they have him fight.
I think they sensed he was the leader more than anything else. I'm not sure. I wasn't exactly clear on that.
Yeah, but that's a good point. He had superlative leadership skills, and the Romans aren't stupid. They're observing, watching. They could see that, and they have him fight his buddy Antoninus to the death. That's the Tony Curtis character, and Tony Curtis wants to kill him because he said, "I'm not going to let them crucify you." But Spartacus feels the same way about Antoninus. Finally, he wins the battle. He stabs him, and with the sword. He says, "What does he say? Forgive me, Antoninus," or "I love you, Antoninus," something like that. I'm sitting crying, and because not only Tony Curtis gets killed, but now Spartacus, of course, is going to be crucified. In the meantime, Crassus takes a shine to Spartacus's wife, Lavinia, or Davinia, something like that. Beautiful woman, and she's pregnant, right? Oh no, she has the baby. She has the baby by then, and Crassus, of course, going to win his final victory over Spartacus, not just by defeating the slave uprising and crucifying Spartacus himself, but by wooing his wife. And he wants her to love him. And of course, she hates him. She makes. He's not going to win this battle. He can rape her, but he's never going to have her love. But Gracchus, the Charles Lawton character, and Crassus, his enemy in the Senate, who senses Crassus wants to be a dictator. Gracchus is going to be killed by Crassus. He knows it, but he hires he's wealthy guy, he's a senator. He hires the Peter Ustinov character, the owner of the Gladiator School, I forget his name offhand, to spirit Lavinia, away from Crassus. And they're riding out of town in the chariot. And this is the most heartbreaking scene, Michael and everybody. And, Spartacus is on the cross. He's still alive. And Peter Ustinov character, we got to get out of town before Crassus realizes, that we've run off. And Gracchus, of course, commits suicide, so he's not killed by Crassus. But she sees that it's Spartacus, and she's like, I'm starting to cry. She shows him, your son, Spartacus, will grow up to be a free man. And Spartacus is still, he's got to be in agony, but he realizes his wife and his son are going to survive. And she says, die. She tells him, die, Spartacus. In other words, leave the suffering behind. Let it go. Your son is going to grow up a free man. She wants to see him die, not suffer anymore. It's just a heartbreaking scene. And then they ride off and they escape, and that's the end of the movie.
Now, there's so many powerful moments, but even from the beginning, Spartacus is a slave, and he just will not capitulate to the slave owners. He was born into slavery, but he's a constant pain in the ass fighting them, so they decide to kill him. But then the head of the gladiator school, he comes, and he's looking to buy slaves, and they've got Spartacus out to die. He's already up there, they just have him wasting away amongst the elements. But the guy buys Spartacus because he sees the toughness in him and in the rebelliousness, and thinks he's going to make a fine gladiator. But of course, it turns out that was, his undoing. But then, they get there, and Spartacus goes to the gladiator school, and he falls in love with, we're going to call her Lavinia. I think that is her name.
It was Vinia something. I don't know if it began with an L, but it was something Vinia.
Yeah. Crucify us. No pun intended for this, but if we get it wrong. But anyways, and then what happens is the Laurence Olivier character comes with, some women, and his brother-in-law is there. I think it was his brother-in-law, and they get to pick who they want to see fight. And Spartacus is one of them.
Yeah, they want to fight to the death. Peter Ustinov said, no, we don't fight to the death here. It's not good for the morale.
Right. He insists on it.
Crassus insists. And Crassus the big money guy. You don't say no.
Yeah. And also in the meantime, that's where the Laurence Olivier character, he purchases Lavinia. He buys her at that spot there. And then it ends up Spartacus has to fight the guy. I think it was the black guy, Spartacus.
Yeah, the Woody Strode character.
Yeah, and that guy just runs up and jumps up and tries to get at the Laurence Olivier character, and Laurence Olivier stabs him and kills him, and that's what ultimately leads to, they've said, screw this, we've had enough.
Yeah.
Now, up to this point, it seems clear to me, I just want to get your take on this, that the modern movie Gladiator with Russell Crowe certainly drew on this. Right? With the, the purchase, the making the slaves fight in the gladiators, then the guy that does it, what was his name? The Peter Ustinov character? I don't remember his name.
The owner of the gladiators?
Yeah.
I don't remember the Roman names. But
he, to me, is reminiscent of the Proximo character in Gladiator, in that he ultimately develops a conscience in the movie, as Proximo did in Gladiator. Do you think, am I just seeing stuff that's not there, or is there some influence?
I just as a guess, my guess would be yes. Gladiator, the Russell Crowe film, won the Oscar for Best Picture, roughly 2000. People love that movie. I never liked it. I didn't like that movie. I saw it when it came out. I'll tell you why I didn't like it. Because right at the outset, they kill off his wife and his son, so that what he's fighting for is revenge. And then he dies and he goes off to them in heaven. What I wanted to see is the bad guy, Commodus, the emperor, that was his name, enslaved his wife and his son. And then he's fighting to free them and liberate them and reunite with them. Then there's real values at stake here. And he's fighting to liberate his wife and his son rather than have them killed at the outset, and he's fighting for revenge. So I never liked that movie, but a lot of people loved it. Won the Oscar.
But he was also fighting to restore Rome to a republic.
The Russell Crowe character?
Yeah. Remember, he looks at this, he looks at the whole
No, I don't
scene, he
remember. I
said,
saw it when it came
oh
out.
yeah, he said, this is not what Marcus Aurelius would have wanted. And at the end, after he kills Commodus and he's getting ready to die, and of course it's a happy ending because it's make believe and he gets to go with his wife and kid in, Never Never Land.
Right.
But before he dies, he instructs the Roman military to restore power to the Senate. So he did have there were some good things going on. There. Maybe it would have been better if he freed the wife and kids. But I love the movie, so we're just have to agree here that you're wrong, and that that Gladiator's great.
Did you see the sequel? Recently?
I have not yet seen it. No,
me either.
No, I'm going to though.
But you're probably right. It probably, Spartacus is like the ne plus ultra of. Get a little Latin.
Now this character,
the ne plus ultra of gladiator movies, right?
Spartacus, his sole desire is freedom, right? Mm-hmm. He, like you said, he doesn't want anything from the Romans.
Yeah, that's what the movie's all about. So
he
it's
just
quest and fight for freedom, right?
Right, and it's interesting to me that you say that this is. The screenplay was written by a communist. You believe the director, I think you said, was a communist.
No, the novelist. Howard Fast, I think was a member of CPUSA.
And now, maybe this is a digression, maybe not, I don't know, but I want to get your take on it as the author of the Capitalist Manifesto. And also, you've written extensively on heroes. And I'm just curious, like, how does a mind that is that's what's the word? I'm dedicated to something as hellish and against the human spirit and anti-freedom as communism, write something like this and not understand the deep contradiction within his own soul?
That's a very good question. To try to answer, let me make an analogy with Christianity.
Sure.
I know a lot of people in my life who are Christians who are really good people. And their view of Christianity is very limited. You love God and you're kind to your brothers and sisters. And that's it. That's their view of Christianity. It's not about the sinfulness of man and this world is a place of suffering and there's a higher world that's superior to it and subordinate reason to faith and everything. Which is the essence of Christianity. No, they love God and they're kind to their brothers and sisters. That's their view of Christianity. A good fictional character is the bishop in Les Miserables. Monsieur Myriel, extremely benevolent. And I think there were members of the Communist Party, certainly in the United States and certainly back then, 1930s, 1940s, whenever Howard Fast wrote the novel, I think it was in 1950 or so. Whose view of communism was very attenuated. It's all about we take care of the downtrodden and the oppressed, and we take care of the little guys, and we overthrow the capitalist system where the rich oppress the poor, and that was their view of communism. It wasn't a totalitarian state where individuals have no rights, they have only obligations. The state is all powerful. You live to serve the state. The state can dispose of my life anyway, anytime it wants, for any reason it sees fit. All that totalitarian stuff is they evade it. They push it aside. It's not part of their purview. And they have a very limited view of what communism is. It's a fight for freedom by the oppressed against the oppressor. So they can write this kind of great stories. I think that's the best I could do to answer your question.
Well, I think you did a good job with that. Because that's to me as I'm watching this movie, and my girlfriend watched it with me, and she was not wanting to watch this movie.
It's not a girl-friendly movie.
Whenever I come to her with the movies that we're gonna do, she's like, "Oh no!" Yeah, but she did like Justice or Judgment at Nuremberg, and she really liked this one. She liked Spartacus.
Oh, really?
Because I think that in a lot of us,
these are very testosterone-driven films.
It is, but there's also that yearning to be free. That I think most people have, even those that don't understand liberty. Like you said, like the guy, he thinks that communism is just about helping people. He doesn't understand the totalitarian nature of it. He wants to be free, and he thinks that communism is a way to free people. Of course, it's not. But I think that
and by the way, let me interject interject for just a second.
Sure.
In the 1930s, CPUSA recruited a lot of people. It was the Depression. You know, you could argue capitalism is, you know, impoverished all these people and caused all this suffering. And communism is about loving our fellow man and raising us up. A lot of people joined CPUSA. Then they saw what Stalin did, the purges, you know, the totalitarian nature of communism. And CPUSA lost a lot of members. You know, a lot of people left the party because they were completely disillusioned with it. They got a reality slap across their face. To their credit, they left the party.
Now, in Spartacus, I think courage, you know, his courage and integrity, his desire to be free, it attracts people to him as a leader. And years ago, and I may have told you this, I don't know, I've told the story so many times, but I was in a workshop in prison called the Alternative to Violence Workshop. And I've never been one to hold my tongue. I tell people what I think, you know, and you know, I'm 5'8", 175 pounds, and I'm in a maximum security prison surrounded by murderers. And, you know, I tell them what I think. And I was talking to an outside volunteer, and I said to her, you know, it surprises me that nobody punches me in the face. Right. I said, it really does, because, you know, I'm honest. And if that happens, it happens. And she said to me, and something that I'll never forget, she said, Michael, whether they know it or not, people recognize integrity and they respect it. By and large, obviously it's not a universal, you know, proposition, but she said, by and large, people, they respect integrity. And when you watch a movie like this and you see that, you know, the following that Spartacus gets, that's not something that a coward gets or a hypocrite gets, a sellout gets. That's something that a person of rock solid character gets.
Right, and you're right. It goes back to your earlier point, how the Romans finally figured out who Spartacus was. He had that air about him, that air of command that requires, you know, rock solid integrity, you know, inside one's own person.
Now, most good movies, and this is no exception, there's a love story involved in there. And this one involves that with Spartacus and Lavinia. What do you think of that? What do you think of their relationship? How they met, how they, you know, got together, how the relationship grew, and then culminating, of course, in the heart-wrenching scene that you talked about where, you know, he's up on the side of the road hanging from this cross. I mean, he's, you know, just waiting basically to starve to death or, you know, die of thirst.
Die of asphyxiation.
Yeah.
Generally is the cause of death.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Because you can't breathe. You're up there for hours and you just get exhausted and you just can't push off the cross to breathe and you suffocate.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I've read, the number of sources. It's a long, drawn out, painful process of death, which is why the Romans, you know, executed their victims that way.
But it was, even though it was so sad, it was a very powerful scene that this man who was a slave since birth, who just wanted to be free, was able, before he died, to see his son going to freedom. He was going to be free. And that happens because his girlfriend is escaping, his lover is escaping, and she shows it. But before that, they obviously developed a relationship. So what do you think about that?
Oh, I liked it. I like
elaborate a little bit.
I like.
We got to get some time here.
I like the romance, and it shows love. What's the old expression? Love conquers all. Well, it doesn't conquer all in this case, but it overcomes a lot because they're both slaves and they're both, you know, whipped and pushed around, and they only get to, you know, to talk to one another. It's not allowed to talk. They got to secretly whisper something. And, you know, Spartacus touches her hand, you know, at one point. But the love at first sight phenomenon is real. It's not just in Ayn Rand's novels. It's, you know, it happens in real life. And these two, a lot of times when a man and a woman have a connection, it's just palpable, you know. It's like you can sense it very early. There's something special here. The eye contact. There's something. That chemistry is there, and they have it. And then they, you know, they build on it. She escapes, right, from slavery and joins Spartacus's army, and you can see that, you know, they love each other, and the relationship builds. They consummate. They get married, right? They're married by the end
I think so. I'm
Yeah,
I'm not sure. It's been a few weeks, maybe a month since
I
I've
see.
seen it.
I think. Well, they love each other. They're deeply in love. I think they, and I think they're married. And I think the budding romance in the midst of the struggle for freedom, and the fight for freedom, shows that love is such a powerful force and I think this is one of the important points in the movie, that love is such a powerful force. It has the capability of growing, anywhere. Like you see these plants, life finds a way, right? Was the line from Jurassic Park. These plants that literally grow through a rock or the crevices in a rock to spread their leaves for the sun. Life finds a way. Well, love finds a way, amidst hardship and war and suffering and killing. The love is such a powerful force in human life, and it does conquer in a certain way by the end, like you were saying, because Spartacus is gone, but his wife and son will live on in freedom, and she'll never let her son, forget who his father was, who and
It's
what his
interesting.
father was.
The love conquers all, because as with much metaphorical talk, somebody can pick it apart and say, well, no, not actually. But ultimately, love does give people the power to conquer much, right? It gives you the motivation, the drive, the willingness to endure hardships and calamities, or a number of other catastrophes in life. So I think that there is something very powerful that saying captures,
And let
if
me,
not literally.
I went to I went to a Catholic college, Mount Marty College in Yankton, South Dakota, and I'll never forget one of the nuns, one of the Benedictine sisters who was history professor there, Sister Rhoda Furkey, who I liked a lot. Uh, she was describing some such example, and one of the kids in class, how'd that happen? How was that possible under those circumstances? I remember Sister Rhoda saying, "Well, love conquers all." Here's the nun, celibate, virginal, and everything. Romantic love is such a powerful force. Well, it is, and
I'm curious to get your take on the Gracchus character. I think that was his name, right?
Charles Lawton.
Yes, yeah. Well, tell us a little bit about him, how he comes into the scene, what the backdrop is, and what's your take on him morally?
Um, First of all, I want to reiterate. I think Charles Lawton is the most versatile and talented screen actor I've ever seen. Whether he's playing Captain Bligh, in Mutiny on the Bounty with Clark Gable, or playing the lawyer in Agatha Christie's Witness for the Prosecution, or whatever. He's just great, and he's great here. Droll, and ironic and everything. Well, he's a senator. He wants the republic to be in power. He doesn't want a dictator. He fears the wrong guy. Julius Caesar is depicted, as Crassus's acolyte here, but he fears Crassus, who wants to be the dictator. It ends up being Caesar, but he's fighting for Republican rule, like you were saying before about the film Gladiator. He's fighting for a republic against the establishment of a dictatorship. And he's clever, he's crafty, and he knows Crassus is going to have him killed when Crassus comes to power at the end. And his last act against Crassus is to enable Lavinia to escape with her son. And then he commits suicide. He never show that on the screen, but we know he's going to commit suicide rather than let Crassus execute him. So I thought Gracchus was a good guy.
I thought so too. From the get-go, it was hard for me to assess, because the head of the gladiator school, he of course liked Gracchus. He didn't like Crassus. Even from the beginning, he had the bust of Gracchus up, and when Crassus would come and he covers it up, he can't let him see it because they're enemies. And he was a politician, and there were some moments when he had the air of maybe being sneaky, it seemed to me, or maybe that was just me projecting it onto him.
Him being a politician.
Yeah. And then, of course, he tells the head of the gladiator school he pays him for Lavinia. And he, even after she's been sold to the other guy, he says, I want her. I'll pay you for, for the rights or some such thing, just to really stick it to him.
Stick it to Crashes.
Yeah. But by the end, you see that no, he's really dedicated to Republican Rome. He opposes the threat of a dictatorship and the growing power of the state. So I have to say too, overall, I think he was a good guy. He's one of the good
Yeah.
guys.
Yeah. We see him opposing. He recognizes he's a very crafty. Look, politics anywhere, anytime is a dirty business. Maybe the only honest politician in history was George Washington. I don't know.
Not Trump.
Well, I support a lot of Trump's policies, but honest like George Washington or honest Abe, no, I don't think so. But maybe George Washington and Abraham Lincoln were the two honest politicians in history. Even Thomas Jefferson, much as I admire him, did a lot of dirty stuff against John Adams and against Washington for that matter. But it's a dirty business. It's notoriously so. And Gracchus is an adroit politician. Crassus is an adroit politician, and the gamesmanship, Crassus seeking power, Gracchus trying to deny him, that power. The gamesmanship is very, very clever. It's very brilliant, and it's dirty. You're bribing people, and everything. And one guy will do whatever it takes to gain power, and the other guy will do whatever it takes to protect the republic from a potential dictator. So, but yeah, ultimately his values are freedom, and against the power lust of Crassus, the Laurence Olivier character. And again, I want to commend the cast. You have some of the greatest actors in film history in this movie, and and it really shows.
How do you think this movie stacks up against the others that we've done so far? Judgment at Nuremberg, The Train, Jeremiah Johnson. Where do you put this one?
Well, I think they're all masterpieces, which is why, I recommended the first three, and when you recommended number 4, I went along avidly because I think these are all classics. These are, these all 5 stars. You want me to try and rate them, relative to each other?
Yeah.
It's like as a longtime baseball fan, as well, who's the GOAT? I see in basketball, it's Michael Jordan. Period. I have no patience for anybody who thinks LeBron James is the GOAT. LeBron's a great player, but MJ by a mile. But in baseball, is it Babe Ruth? Is it Willie Mays? And you could debate this, and baseball fans do. They go back and forth for hours. And I think part of the conclusion is when you get to that level, it doesn't matter very much. You would take any one of these guys. If you had the first pick all time from anybody else play, you take any one of these guys. So I want to make that clear. These are all classic movies. And then at some point it becomes we can rate them objectively, but also there's personal responses to a work of art that come into it. My personal favorite of all of these is Judgment at Nuremberg.
Yeah, me too.
The quest, it's a great movie, first of all, great cast, great acting, and it's the quest for justice. Bring justice, to these bastards and to people who, said, well, we didn't know. We discussed that. I don't blame them for kowtowing to the Nazis because the Nazis would have killed them, and if they had children, they would have killed their children. But now it's all over. You can at least stand up and say, look, I sensed what was going on, and I was too afraid to speak up. All right, I can respect that. You're protecting your family. But to lie about it now is, I didn't know. We didn't know. How were we supposed to know? The movie showed. No, you guys knew. The movie showed that it's a great historical act of justice in a great work of art. That's my favorite, and I think you could argue objectively it's as good or maybe better than any of these great films.
I think it might be my favorite movie of all time.
That's a good.
Like it.
That's very good. Movie. Yeah, very good choice.
All right. When assessed within the framework of the objectivist aesthetic theory, of romantic realism. Where does this movie fit?
Well, we've discussed this in a number of instances. Ayn Rand's brilliant insight. I don't know anybody else whoever suggested this. That the distinction, the primary distinction between romantic literature and naturalist literature is a philosophical one. It's about the issue of volition. That the romantic school is the school that shows human beings choosing to pursue values, whereas the naturalist school is the school that shows human beings pushed around by various powerful social forces, whether it's mentally ill families or capitalist oppression in the economic system or whatever. And here I think you see people making crucial life-giving choices. And right from the start, you mentioned the Woody Strode character, the black actor who you see him in John Ford, I think, liked Woody Strode. He appeared in a number of John Ford westerns with John Wayne. But big, strong guy. He defeats Spartacus when Crassus and the women. The women are the ones who want to see him fight to the death. And he defeats Spartacus. I forget his name. The Woody Strode character defeats the Kirk Douglas character, has him at his mercy, and he's looking up, to the Crassus and the ladies, hoping to get a thumbs up, let him go. But the ladies are very clear. Can we call it ladies? We just call them bitches.
Is that a philosophical term?
Well, maybe not. Maybe that's the wrong word. Bloodthirsty. They're bloodthirsty women.
We'll go with bitches. It works.
All right, fine. Let's put it this way. This is not somebody I want to date. I don't want her as my girlfriend. But they're very clear on the thumbs down. And Woody Strode doesn't. He won't do it. He knows he's going to get killed. He makes the choice to stand up. I am not a murderer. I'm not a trained SEAL who kills on your command. I'm a man. And he walks and he takes the trident and he fires it at them. And Crassus has to duck. And then he's crawling up the tapestry to get at them. And one of the centurions throws a spear in his back. He's already dying, but he's still crawling up. And Crassus takes his dagger and finishes him off. And wow, what a scene. Whereas, that character, the Woody Strode character, could have made a very different choice and gone on living temporarily anyway, until eventually he'd probably be killed in the ring. Although they said once in a while a gladiator would survive to retirement or whatever. But he made a choice. No one Romans are going to kill me right now. I am not a trained killer. I don't kill on your command. I'm a man. And he made, wow, what a choice. And it sets the tone for the whole rest of the movie. And the gladiators rise up and they rather than succumb or submit or surrender, they made the choice, we're going to fight for freedom. And if we get killed, fight for freedom, well, we're going to die on our feet. We're going to die standing up like a man fighting for our freedom. And free will permeates the whole story.
It absolutely does. And another thing that Rand talks about is how art is the fuel for man's soul, right? It gives us the fuel, the motivation. And I find this kind of movie just so inspiring. It makes me want to go out and just fight for what I believe in, fight for what I want in this world. I thought it was a very well-made movie. I thought Kirk Douglas knocked it out of the park as Spartacus. Great movie. And I'm very glad that we did it.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. It reminds me, all these hero stories remind me of the great quote from Ernest Shackleton, the Antarctic explorer. What was obstacles are just things to be overcome.
How do you remember these people? Ernie Shackleton.
Ernest.
I'm going to call him Ernie.
Maybe his friends called him Ernie. I don't know. I'll tell you a story about Shackleton.
Okay.
He was such a. You ought to read Endurance. The true story. It's the greatest survival story in history. There's nothing like it. How Shackleton and his men survived this. But it was another polar explorer. Forget his name. He was talking about the great polar explorers. He said something like, for scientific expertise, give me Robert Scott. For expeditious travel, give me Roald Amundsen. But if you're in a hopeless situation and all is lost, get on your knees and pray for Ernest Shackleton. How's that for a tribute?
Yeah, that's powerful. That's great.
Obstacles are just things to be overcome.
That's right.
And that's what heroes do. They make that choice. They're not gonna surrender. We're not gonna submit to slavery. We're not gonna lie down, curl up in the fetal position, and die. We're gonna fight. And that's the choice they make all through the movie. And at the end, you see it. These guys again, they stand up. They know they're going to be crucified. All they have to do is they don't have to say anything. Spartacus has already stood up and said, "I am Spartacus." You know, like you said before, Michael, the Romans are insightful. They could see the air about him. They believe it. Yeah, all right, we'll crucify you. And maybe they keep their word and spare the lives of the others. Maybe they wouldn't, but maybe they would. They don't have to say anything, but they all make the choice, stand up. I am Spartacus. I am Spartacus. You know, to try and protect Spartacus, even though the Romans said we'll crucify all of you. Ooh, I think I would have kept my mouth shut at that point.
I'm afraid I think I would have too.
Yeah, I have a chance to live. And
that's why we look at people like that as heroic, right?
Yeah.
Because a hero is something we look at him and we say, wow, like that takes something. If we all knew we could all do it, well, then who would care? You know, it'd be like going to the store. I can go to the store. You can go to the store. Who gives a shit?
Right.
But when you see somebody do that, it rises to the level of heroism. And it's something to admire and something to strive for. Right,
absolutely. It's not just that they're going to kill me. They're going to kill me slow and painful. They're going to torture me to death on the cross. It's not like they're going to, you know, take the sword and chop off my head and I'm in a couple of seconds I'm dead. No, it's going to be hours of agony. And they make that choice. It's very heroic. And the free will principle permeates this whole story.
And I'll tell you, if people use their free will to find you, that will not be agonizing for them. That'll be very rewarding.
That's a very, very smooth transition.
It's a nice segue, right? Do you see the transition? I'm getting good at the transition.
Yes.
So tell people, where can they find you? Put up your books. Do everything.
Well, andrewbernstein.net is my website. And by the way, I'm taking on tutoring clients. If anybody wants tutoring in philosophy, objectivism, Ayn Rand's novels, the history of philosophy and so on, they can contact me through my website or on Facebook or on my email, andyswoop@gmail.com. andyswoop@gmail.com.
Do you have an advertisement for that already? Do you have a link for that for people
that
want to get? Yeah.
Well, I put it up on Facebook the other day. I got 60 some odd likes, but only a couple of nibbles.
Okay, well, I'm going to go find it today, and I'll share it to my page.
Thank you, Michael. Thank you. And like you said, I'm a writer. Here's my book on education: Why Johnny Still Can't Read or Write or Understand Math, and what we could do about it. Here's my book on heroes. Heroes, Legends, Champions, Why Heroism Matters, with that beautiful Brian Lawson painting, on the cover. Thank you, Brian, for letting me. Brian Lawson, to me, is the best painter, in the world. And I appreciate him letting me put that magnificent painting on the cover. And then, of course, the book our good friend Mark Pellegrino, often recommends, The Capitalist Manifesto, the historic, economic, and philosophic case for laissez-faire. And part of the inspiration for the American Capitalist Party. So part of the theoretical underpinning for our positions in the Capitalist Manifesto. So yeah, I've written a number of books. I have a tough guy detective novel coming out soon. The pub date is February 15th.
All right. Well,
the Tony Just series.
Well, you're gonna have to come on and talk about that too.
Oh, absolutely. And with climate change and I can send you a copy of the Hero book and my booklet on racism also, I think.
That we already did it. We did a whole episode about it.
Did we?
Yeah.
I
Shackleton, yeah, you remember. But coming on my show, you don't remember.
Sorry, buddy. I've been on your show so many times. How long ago was that we did the racism?
I don't know. It's been a while. Yeah. It's been a while, but it was a good one.
We can always. It's such an important topic.
We can redo it
down the road. We can always reprise it.
Absolutely. Andy, thank you so much for being here with us again. And of course, we'll have you on again. You're absolutely a treasure. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Michael. It's always fun being on. I mean, there's a lot of podcasts I enjoy being on, but yours is the most fun,
Oh,
without a doubt.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Well, sometimes once in a while you meet someone in life and you just connect, you know.
Yes.
And if it's male female, love grows.
Yeah.
Romantic love grows. If it's male male, two heterosexual males, then they have this very close friendship as a bond. And I just right from the start, right from the jump, I felt this connection with you.
Yeah, you
Like we're on the same page. You know, we disagree
you
on
and Jim
things.
Valiant when it comes to
Jim Valiant's really good guy.
objectivists. I think you guys are just, that's like you say, you have the intellect but also the soul, the objectivist soul. You know what I mean?
It's not enough to have the mind of an objectivist. You got to have the soul of a romantic.
Yes.
And some do and some don't.
That's a great place to stop. For now, this is the Rational Egoist signing out. I'm Michael Leibowitz. Till next time.